Well, welcome everybody, and thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join us for this live event. My name is Mark Hudson. I'm the CEO here at Squirrel365, and today I'm joined by my colleague Donald McCormick, our Chief Strategy Officer. Now, we're actually recording this live event, so this will be available to you all later today, and we'll also have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or pop them into the Q&A panel, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. So let's get started. Now, whilst Excel is the go-to solution for financial modelling, the challenge that many of us face is once our models are complete, is how best we distribute them for review, engage our audience, and easily allow our colleagues or clients to test the models with some style of what-if analysis. Now, Squirrel365, we think, is a perfect combination to Excel for financial modelling. It allows you to create visually stunning interactive web documents from your models and can be easily shared with your colleagues or your clients. No more emailing bulky Excel files and worrying about version control, etc., etc. So it also allows people you share your interactive model with to perform what-if analysis on your model and save the scenarios for further discussions. So today we're going to focus on a better way you can distribute your financial models, how you can use interactive what-if capabilities, engaging your audience with visually appealing models, and protecting your model's intellectual property. So let's see how that's all done. Donald, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome everyone to this afternoon's webinar. It's afternoon for me, whatever time it is for you. Welcome and come along. And two things to say, even just on this front slide. The first thing is we're talking here about saying revolutionize your financial modeling. Well, in fact, it's any sort of modeling. It doesn't have to be financial. It can be any sort of modeling inside Excel, and you will see what you will see when we're demoing here is just an amazing sort of capability you can add to Excel. And that's the second important thing. This is Excel and Squirrel365. We're not talking about replacing Excel. There's no point in thinking about saying, well, I'll model in something else. You don't want to do that. Everybody is wedded. I'm the same, wedded to Excel and the modeling capabilities are in this. As we go through, what you'll see is that what Squirrel365 does is it enhances and as a companion product to Excel to allow you to do more, to do remarkable things that frankly you never really dreamed of doing before. And so what are we going to do? Well, we're going to show you today how you can have your Excel models without changing them at all and make them like you've never seen them before. We're going to be turning them into stunning, interactive, shareable, managed web documents. And it sounds, this sounds too good to be true. This is absolutely what we're going to do. We're going to show you a way of taking your Excel logic, the numbers in Excel, all the work you've poured into your Excel capability and the skills you've learned. Take those and build on them, not deconstruct them, not move to somewhere else, but stay with that logic, with that all that the content you've created, and wrap it inside Squirrel365 to create these amazing web documents. And as I say sharing, I mean, when I say sharing, well, you can share this with a link. You can share it in a PowerPoint, in email, in collaboration tools, in websites. Almost anywhere you can share web content. Well, in fact, anywhere you can share web content, you can share the output of Squirrel built on your Excel models. So I say all of this, but why does this matter? Why is this more than just sort of a nice to have? Well, this matters because, as people are so keen to say, we live in the attention economy. So you have to grab attention. Your Excel models deserve a wider audience. You're doing them to communicate something, to help people understand something, to your colleagues or your customers or your partners. You want to grab their attention so they come to see. So, and the fact that Squirrel gives you easily shareable, highly visual content gets people's attention, that you can get to where they're looking and grab them with something that looks remarkable, but you can keep their attention because you've got these capability which is interactive, which they can play with. They can slide sliders and drop downs to change the assumptions behind your model so that they can see what happens. It gives them a much deeper insight into what's going on in whatever process it is that you've modeled, and that keeps them engaged and actually helps the transfer of knowledge from you and what you've done in your model into the heads of your users, as I say, whether those are customers, colleagues, partners, or anybody else. It also allows you for people to save scenarios, so they can say, I've got something here, I've used this model to say, well, this is a scenario where I've got sort of high growth but some turnover. Well, I'll save that as a scenario for later. So people, and then when you're presenting it, you can come back and say, well, here are the three scenarios I've got, A, B, and C, so people can see them quickly and easily. So it really does sort of wrap around everything you're trying to do with your model. but also it allows you to keep control. You don't have to distribute files. You don't have to send an Excel file around, and when it's gone, you don't know who's got it. You don't have to think about password protecting the bits that you want and the bits that you don't want. And also, if you have got a model, which is often the case, that you'd rather people don't see the insides of, whether that's because it's commercially confidential or it's sort of proprietary to you and it's your IP that you trade on, or even you just don't want to scare people with the complexities of the underlying model. You just want them to see the high level picture. Spoken to many sales organizations that say, yeah, we got these Excel models that help us articulate the value of our products. But we don't really want to give that to a customer because it's complicated, and they dig into the Excel and they have a look at it and they try and sort of understand it. We just want to give them the high level picture so they can change what is the specifics about their business and see the answer. So all those things come together to mean that you can, this really does, and I don't say this lightly, will revolutionize the way you take your Excel files and what you do with them, who you share them with, how you share them, and what you achieve with them. But that's all just words. That's just sort of, that's the sort of the PowerPoint behind this. What we want to do now is to show you, first of all, some of the possibilities. So I'm going to show you some examples of this, and then I'm going to show you how you do it. And remember, for all of these possibilities we're going to through, this is Excel. This is based on an Excel model. I've done almost nothing to the Excel model. We've brought it into Squirrel, created these amazing visualizations and these amazing sort of pieces of content, and published them out to the web. So the first one is an Excel what if calculator. Sort of what if is the bedrock of what people do in Excel. But here I haven't. Even now you can start to see this profitability analysis model may be sort of really under the covers. It may have lots of complexity, but here it's just sort of, I can just pick up my different sort of assumptions and say, okay, I want to see what happens when I change some of these assumptions in here. I might also want to say, well, actually, some people like this visually and some people like it non-visually. So I can click between a table. When I'm here, the table changes as well. So you see all those numbers updating. So it sort of has the feel of a spreadsheet sort of on steroids, but you can do amazing things to, as I say, people get drawn. Oh, that's quite nice. Oh, but I want the, and they come and they stay because they've got this deeper analysis or this different way of looking at things. This one also has the capability to change some of the things. I can change the title, quite why I'd want to do this. But it's my title here. I'm not sure, but there we go. So I've changed the title on it. I can maybe change the color of the bars, and these numbers here, I can turn them on and off. Now that may not, it's entirely up to you whether you want to do that sort of thing, but it shows you some of the possibilities here. The second one is similar. But actually, it's more fun, if you like. Timo Elliott, who's a technology evangelist at SAP, used to start his presentations with a calculator that showed sort of how many presentations per day, how many slides per day, how many participants, and what happens. You notice the picture at the bottom of the woman who's sort of attending all of these. Going slowly mad because of the overload. Again, it's just something that Timo did to lighten the start of his presentation. But again, this is all based in a model in Excel, the like of which you would easily recognize if you saw it. An even simpler model here is the BMI calculator, the body mass index calculator. And so that really is a very simple Excel formula where I think you take your height in meters divided by the square of your weight in kilograms. But that simple, we can transform that simple formula, again, in Excel, into something that helps people understand more. It's visual, it's engaged. You can see why people would do this. Well, if I've set what do I need to get green or to get down to orange? So again, it's not only you grab attention, you're keeping attention by allowing people to interact with things. Going back to more sort of commercial examples, if you like, we have a number of customers who actually take these models, put them on their website to explain their value. A great example of this is Future Metrics. If I come here to their website, Future Metrics do research, analytics, and expert advice in the wood pellet sector. So they help people understand the benefits of electricity generation from wood pellets. And you can see as down here at the bottom of their front page, they've got all of these are Squirrel365 models. So for example, if I click on it, it opens up. So directly from people don't need to know that this is Squirrel365. This is just their value. So this is all about if you do what your carbon emissions are, how they're lowered with the particulars of your business, and so you can change all of these Whether it's the details of how you go from making them to the port, or when you're shipping, or the port to the power plant. And notice here, if I say, well, actually the mix here is 15% nuclear, this has gone red because I can't have 105%, so I have to reduce something back down to make it go to switch the red off. So lots of different sort of capabilities here that just allow, but they're the model behind this, again, how this is calculated may well be proprietary to the guys at Future Metrics. If you had to send out a spreadsheet, you have to worry about people seeing that. Here, complete control of what the end user sees, which makes it much simpler for them and much safer for the guys at Future Metrics who are doing that. Then this is a more sophisticated, this is one that I created, is about a company that's a SaaS software as a service business. And a few of the drivers in it to understand how revenue is going to be over the next 2 years. Obviously, churn here is a big factor. If you get less churn, it sort of goes up. Obviously, conversion rates, and so you can see it goes up with conversion rates. So I can play around with this. But this is a sort of example. This is an example where we've built in the ability to save and load scenarios. So if I come on here, it pops up a little area that I can say, okay, what's my scenario? I'm going to go to my exponential growth scenario, or I'm going to go to my flat scenario, or I'm going to go on my drop-off scenario. And you can imagine, not only does this allow sort of perhaps people who are coming to use this to get involved and to save sort of, oh, I saved this. And indeed, at the back end, you can then see what people have been saving. So it might be interesting insight into how people are using the model. But more than that, if you were presenting this, then what you would be able to do is to be able to, rather than say, well, actually, let me just move these around till I get to the one, you can say, so we've done some modeling and there's a case where it's exponential and these are the assumptions behind it. But if we want to then go and see what would happen if we didn't do that, it's going to go flat. Very quickly switching. All of these are changing to different things. So you've done all the analysis, and then you can start to sort of repackage that up so that it's much easier to communicate with it. So whether you're delivering to someone else or just as we are here putting it in PowerPoint to present to an audience, the ability to save these scenarios is a fantastic capability. And then the final one before we go into looking at how you build these is something we were talking about. So we use Amazon Web Services Lambda functions in on our server, and we were wondering, well, how much is this going to cost us? Because obviously it's elastic. The more you use it, the more it costs. And so we put together this little calculator where you can say, well, which region are you in? I think we're in the EU London one. How much memory are you going to put in each of these functions? If we put 1.5, and then how many requests per month are you going to get, and what's the request duration? So you can start to model this sort of stuff. Notice that there's a free layer, so if I get low enough, it reverts back to, there you go, it's covered by the free tier, so it pops up as highlighting that. I can say I don't want to include the free tier, maybe I'm not eligible for it, and then show calculations. So I can go there and see actually what are the calculations here. So all very similar to the things we've seen before, but in a completely different use. Nice little help screen here that allows us to know what each of these are, if to make it sort of so that people can just use it. You don't need to help train them on it or give them documentation. It should all be very self-explanatory. So those are the sort of things that we can do with your financial models, any of your Excel models, and what we can turn them into in terms of these amazing shareable, visual, interactive web documents. But a big question at this point is, well, how's that done? How easy or difficult is it to do this? Because if it's really easy, it's amazing. And if it's really hard, then it's not that big a deal. Well, the answer is it's really easy. So what I'm going to do here is, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and show you a model. Now this, you guys will laugh at it potentially, because it is one of the world's most trivial Excel models, but it serves a purpose, both in terms of what it does and a purpose in terms of showing you what Squirrel365 can do on top of something like this. So this is my R model. We have been, for the last year or so, we have been submerged in stuff about the COVID pandemic. And one of the things that keeps coming up is this R number, the rate of infection, which hovers around 1. Is it above 1? Is it below 1? And one of the questions I've heard from people on and over is, well, sort of, if R is 1 or 1.1, that's not a big difference. Does that really make a big difference? If I stay inside and help it to go down to, I don't know, 1.09, is that better than 0.1? I mean, it can't make that much of a difference. So I thought I'd write a little model to explain it makes an enormous difference. And so what I did here is I've got just the number of weeks. I've got a starting point of 5,000 people who are infected. I've got an R here sitting at 1.1. And all I do is I say in this week, the number of people infected is rounded because it's got to be a whole number, is just up here, which is the number of people who are currently infected times the R number. So that's the number of people who are infected this week. And then next week, the number of people infected are just those that were infected last week, because we're assuming very simplistically here, but I think it works, is that everyone who was ill last week is better this week. So we're assuming that it's a 1 week thing. You get it, you pass it on, you get better, and that just and these just copy along there. That's all there is to it. Now, obviously, if I sort of say R is 1.5, then these numbers get bigger, and if I put it down to 0.7, then they get smaller. But it's actually quite hard to hear to explain to people, for people to really get what's going on. I could add a chart, but then I have to type the numbers and move to the chart and all that sort of stuff. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to bring it into Squirrel and show you what you can do with it when you've got something like this. So if I close it down here, save it away, and I'm going to come into Squirrel. And to show I've got nothing up my sleeves, as it were, I'm going to say new. So it's a completely new, empty Squirrel project. And I'm going to say File, Spreadsheet, Import. So I'm going to import that model of R. It's exactly the same. The formulas are the same. Everything really is the same about it as it was there. But I'm going to use this as the basis for my web content created with a web document created with Squirrel. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line chart on here. And obviously a line chart needs some data. So I go into data and I'm just going to say I want to take these 14 weeks worth of data. Now that's trying to, each one is a line, which is not what I want, so I can switch it and get them all on one. So there we go. So we can already see the sort of the hint of the exponential there. Now I've got lots of things on here that I don't really need, so I'm maybe going to turn off the title and the subtitle. And what I want to do is, because I know this is going to grow, so I want to communicate the growth thing here. I'm going to go to my y-axis and say I want this to go from 0 to maybe 100,000. So it's very small, because we know that as we increase this, it's going to grow. So there I've got my chart. Well, actually, what I might do now is I'm going to take the title. The y-axis title is infections, and then the x-axis title is just going to be weeks. So now I've got the chart that I want, but I want to make it interactive. I want them to be able to play with this. So what I do is I say, okay, I'm going to add a control. I'm going to add a slider. There's my slider. I'm going to put the slider and connect it to my R value. So that's the slider. And I'm going to say that it goes from 0.5 to 1.5, because I say small differences in this make a big difference in the output. And I'm going to do it by increments of 0.01. So having just done that, that's all I've done. I can come in here and then preview in a sort of a debug mode what happens when I move this. So look, suddenly we start to see, small changes. I don't even have to get to 1.5 and we're already off the top of the chart. And if I come down, you can see how it turns out. You can see all the numbers at the bottom here, but the important thing is communicating with this chart. But because it goes off the top and actually quite hard to see when you go down how close you get to 0, what I want is a number here that's going to give me the final infection. So where do we end up after 14 weeks? So I say final infections here. I'm just going to use a little Excel formula. So equals this piece of text, and this is exactly what you would do in Excel. I'm going to have a text function so I can make this, format this number. I'm going to take the final number here, and I'm going to format it again exactly as I would in Excel, like that. So I've now got this here, which is going to give it to me. I'm going to add that as a piece of text to my document. I'm going to say just bind it to this cell. So I've got a dynamic piece of text because this is all going to change. This is dependent on that last number. So when these all calculate, that number changes, which pushes its value into this piece of text. I might want to format this a little more nicely, make it sort of 30. I'm going to make the text color white. It's currently invisible, but then I'll make the background color black to make it, then I put it up here. So now what we can see is if I come in, let's preview this as a user would see it, so hiding all the spreadsheet stuff. So I come in here and there I've got this. So I can now say, well, actually what happens when I go up to here? Well, it goes over almost 1.5 million infections, and R is only 1.5. Suddenly we're getting across, this viscerally getting across what's going on. If I go down, an interesting one here you could do, which is actually really quite hard to do straight in Excel. Say, well, okay, I've got 500, so when it's one person infects one other person, so it just stays at 5,000. So if I was to, what do I need to get R down to half it? to half to 2,500. Well, the answer is, you might think, well, half of it, but it's not. You go down to only 0.95 here, and I'm already under half. So it's very sensitive around here. So suddenly people can play with this and start to get a feel for what's going on. Now, the interesting thing is you might be saying, yeah, but you noticed that I created some Excel capability, some more formulas in here using Excel capability. Well, that's incredibly useful to be able to do that whilst I'm developing my model. You need access to the sheet here so I can do it, but also you want to keep it in sync with your Excel file. You don't want this sitting in here, a different Excel file there. So I can say I'm going to export this. So I export this spreadsheet back over the one that I had before. I want to save it. Yes, so off I go. And if I come back to Excel again, and then say I'm going to open that, we'll see that that little bit that I added, which is this here with this this formula, is in my Excel spreadsheet. So it really is a companion. So I'm not trying to say, oh, you should do your modeling in Squirrel365. No, maybe the little tweaks you need to make in Squirrel365. Your main modeling vehicle is still Excel. You stay there, and you don't sort of, it's not a replacement. It really is a sort of a companion product. So we've got this. I said we can share it. How do we share it? Well, the first thing we have to do is here, I'm going to publish it. I'm going to publish it up to the Squirrel Cloud. And I'm going to call this R Explainer. And that's all I need to do, publish. This is now published. It'll go away. It'll take me to my project manager so I can see all my web documents that are available. And I can say, I need to publish this to live. So this is currently in draft, so only I can see it. I want to make it public, so I move it to live. So it's now available to share with other people. Then I go to share, and there are a number of ways I can share it. The first way is PowerPoint. So if I copy this PowerPoint ID, then I'm going to come into PowerPoint here. Here's a blank. Actually, we can do a new one. Let's do a new blank so you make sure I've got nothing up my sleeves, as I say. Close the design ideas. It keeps coming back. So I've got a slide here, and it might be my R explainer, and I'm going to remove that content because what I want is I want to insert, and you can get this Squirrel add-on from the Microsoft PowerPoint store. It's free to download. You don't need to pay for it. You just download it. Enter that ID that I just took from my thing, and there I mean literally this didn't exist 10 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago, and now here I've got it inside PowerPoint, and I can let me just put it in the center there, and I can interact with it. So inside PowerPoint I can do all the things that I was doing before. If I say I'm going to view this slide as a presentation, obviously there it's interactive as well. So here I've got it's interactive in my final presentation where I'm presenting to my audience. So whether it's to my audience or whether it's to just for my own use, I publish. It's so easy to publish to PowerPoint and get it up there. So that's the first way of sharing it. The second way is as a web link. So if I copy a web link and then I come in here and I say I'm going to go to back to my thing here, I just send someone that link literally, and they can go, hey presto, they've got it as well. So here I am, I can do everything that you saw before just on the end of a web link. But there's so many other places I can do. For example, we use Microsoft Teams, and so if I come in here to one of my collaboration channels, what I can do is I can put the link in here in a new conversation. So just got that link, gives me a nice little sort of graphic of it. But maybe I want to add it as a page here. And so I'm just going to add this, add this, search it as a web page. And then I can sort of say R explainer and put the URL in there. And so now I've got it as part of my as part of my Teams, as a page in my Teams instance. Now, so that's the end. Finally, you can also embed it in another place as well. You can embed it in a website. And now there is a way in Squirrel to get the code that you might embed in something like WordPress. But more and more sites are using a thing called OEmbed or Embedly to be able to do this. So for example, Medium here is a blogging site, which I've got an account on. So I'm going to go here and write a story. So I'm going to write a Medium story. And I'm going to say, this is remarkable, and remarkable. And then having done that, I can then apologies. My squirrel skills are rather better than my my medium skills. So if I come in here and do that, I want to add some more content. So I'm going to add. I just have to paste that link in, and see why not? I have to paste it as a title. There we go. I'll paste it in here. So having pasted that in, that becomes the full thing. Let me take that out because obviously I don't need it. That should have been a title. And if I come down and say, well, I want a draft link of this, so I copy this draft link, and then I go to another browser, which isn't me, because if I come into it with this browser, it'll just go back into edit mode. But if I go into a different browser where I'm not logged in the same way, then you can see I've now got a Medium post that has this embedded in it, where I can do all the things that I did before. So I sort of taken that content. And remember, 10 minutes ago, this was an Excel model. I've now packaged it using Squirrel, not changing my Excel model, packaged it using Squirrel. And it's now, I've put it in PowerPoint, I've sent it for a link, I've put it in Teams, I've embedded it in a Medium post. So there are so many different ways that we can do this. So that's how it's done. It's so straightforward. You have to just take your Excel model, bring it into Squirrel, add whatever it is you want to put around it, whether that be sliders or drop downs or checkboxes or tables or charts or whatever, and turn it into these remarkable these remarkable pieces of content. And so it really does allow you to take your Excel documents and turn them into stunning, interactive, shareable, managed web documents. So say you're not sending Excel files around with all the formulas in them and stuff. You're just sending a web page, and it's a document which is essentially a web app which allows you to control everything that's going on, and you can share it with a link in a PowerPoint, in email, in collaboration tools, in websites, and many other places besides. And this matters because it allows you, as I said at the beginning, to grab attention. In the attention economy, getting noticed is hard because you're visual and you can share it where people are there, where they want to find things. You can keep that attention by allowing them to interact. Remember, we saw the sliders. People can interact and get into it and understand and be educated by it, as well as being sort of pulled in by it. And also that capability to save scenarios so that people can save, I want to save this and show my colleague. If I've done a lot of work to get there, just save it. And finally, keep control. So there's no files to distribute. You don't have to expose your Excel logic. So if you're interested, try it for yourself. Many of these examples are up at squirrel365.io/showcase. There are some examples of them in PowerPoint. You can download those and take them. Those examples are free to distribute. Or you can get a trial and go to 365.io/get started. No credit card required. Just download the designer and you will have a cloud account and can do exactly what I showed you today, but on your models. Because as I say, Squirrel really does allow you to revolutionize what you can do with your Excel models. And with that, I will pass back to Mark, and we can take any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Donald. Yeah, we've got some questions that have come in from the audience. First off, we'll take a question from Pedro. And Pedro has asked, in the example of the R explainer, can you change the scale of y-axis automatically as it grows?
So yes, you could. I mean, I actually fixed it to make a point. It sort of goes off the top. That's huge growth. But absolutely, you can by default, it actually does it automatically, or you can take control of it. And again, the way you would take control of it is by saying, I've got a cell in my spreadsheet that I'm saying is the maximum. So you can actually you can take fine control of it. Again, just using nothing but your Excel control. So yes, you can absolutely do that.
Great stuff. Question from John. What versions of Excel do you support?
So we support pretty much any version. It needs to be an XLSX, which goes back a way. So you need to be an XLSX file to read it in. So yeah, almost every version of Excel we support.
And does that include Excel Online?
So indeed, if you can have your documents in Excel Online, and if you do have documents in Excel Online, then we can dynamically access data from Squirrel in those as well. So there's a little more you can do if you have your documents online.
Great stuff. Pedro also asks another question, and that is, what happens if I've got a worksheet that has got VBA behind it? Can I use that within
No,
Squirrel?
I'm afraid not. So the VBA you have to. I mean, you can still read in the sheet, but the VBA will not come through. However, almost everything you could do in VBA, or the sort of things that you would want to do in VBA and Excel, are handled differently, and I would argue more easily inside Squirrel. If you've got specifics on that, I'd be interested to know what you're trying to do, and let you know how you would do that in Squirrel.
Fantastic. So Pedro, maybe reach out to us or Donald, and we can take a look at that for you. A question from Rachel. I use Excel, but I do also have some content in Google Sheets. Do you support Google Sheets?
Yep, you can take your model out of Google Sheets if that's your preferred way of modeling.
Fantastic. That's all the questions for today. Thank you so much. Thank you for the comments as well. There's a lovely comment here. Impressive and useful. Thanks for the presentation. Gave me food for thought. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking your time out of your day to join us today. As Donald says, the recording will be sent out via email. If you want to get started with Squirrel, it's a free 30-day trial. And also, if this has given you food for thought, and you'd like maybe a one-on-one, or you want a private demonstration with your team where you can ask questions and collaborate, there'll be a deep dive button on the recording email. Please feel free to schedule one of those. Donald and I will jump on a call with you and your team and take you through what can be achieved with Squirrel. So again, thank you so much, and thank you to Donald. Good day, everyone.
Goodbye.